Today I wanted to share with you the most important lesson that I have learned after being married for 22 years. That's on the art of lifing with Keka. In a couple of months, I'm actually really proud to say that my husband and I will have been married for 22 years. It's kind of funny when I think about that because in some ways it feels like it was just yesterday, our wedding and all of the little, fun stories that come along with it. And then in other ways, I feel like I've been married to him for so long. But regardless, I wouldn't change a thing about our marriage, and I'm very grateful for that. But when I was 23 and I was getting married, there was a fear that I had inside of me, just looking at all the divorce rates around us. We had friends who had been married and were getting divorced, and I just kept thinking, I really want my marriage to work. And so in some ways, inside myself, I was searching for the secret. Like, what's the secret to success? And when I would see marriages around me, let's say, couples who had been married for 25 years or 30 years, and they broke up and got a divorce and got into other relationships, that really almost scared me because I thought, if you've been with somebody for that long and then suddenly you get a divorce, is there nothing that's safe in this world? Like, shouldn't it be that after a certain while, once you've gone through a few years of marriage, you've made it and you are officially safe? But clearly there are cases where that's not what happens. Similarly, I used to, watch movies, or I would hear friends and they would say, well, I've fallen out of love with somebody. And I used to think, like, how do you prevent that from happening? Isn't like if you fall in love with somebody, that kind of usually just tends to happen. That was my belief. And so therefore, if you fall out of love, what can you do in a marriage to try to save that? Those were big question marks that my poor husband walked into our marriage with. Those were my insecurities as we went along. But what I've realized, probably the most important lesson I've realized over our time in our marriage, is that marriage is not something that's like a piece of coal that you put together and over time it turns into a diamond and it's like, voila, there you are. Or it's not like a marathon where you're like running, you go past the finish line and you're like, okay, our marriage now is officially safe. There is no risk for divorce. It doesn't actually work that way. When Valentine's Day comes, or there's any type of couple celebrations, or when we talk about dating culture, so often the vernacular is all about, well, I want this type of person. I want this kind of person who's going to do this for me. And I want this kind of person who has these traits, and they're going to treat me like this. And I think sometimes we have to change that conversation and say, I want to give into this relationship X, Y, and Z. Because what I've learned is that a really healthy, amazing marriage is more like when you plant a seed and then you watch it grow, and every day you water it, you make sure it's got good soil and fertilizer, you make sure that it's in the sun, and if ever there's a crack in the pot, if ever something small goes wrong, that you take care of it right away so that you can maintain this healthy plant. So if you've got a beautiful plant that you've nurtured for 25 years, you're not going to at some point come back and say, all right, you know what, I've done this for 25 years. We're in the safe zone. I don't need to water this plant anymore. But the joy that comes from nurturing a plant like that, where you're constantly putting in work, but you're getting so much out of it, is really special. So that's the biggest takeaway that I have, is that, when you look at a marriage that has broken apart after 25 years, chances are there were some cracks in that foundation that came up a long time ago. And often those relationships that do break up after a while are just slowly breaking up, that they're not actually having the chance to rebound and repair the way that you can when as soon as you see something, you take care of it. So if you're in a relationship, if you're dating, if you've been married for however long, that's the one thing that I'm just going to ask you to think about, is what can you put into the relationship and how can you nurture it? Because when you do, there's something that you get back that is so special. I have to say I really struggled in terms of sharing this idea with you because I thought, who am I to share marriage advice? Marriage is something that's living and breathing and constantly changing, and I'm constantly learning. But as I was sharing this with a few friends of mine recently, they said, you really should share this. And I thought, okay, I'm going to put all superstitions aside and I'm going to share with you how I feel. Because at the end of the day, I think that a beautiful marriage is something that's so, so worth fighting for and so worth nurturing every single day. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed the content, then please like it and share it with anybody that you think might be interested in this content as well. I would also love it if you could subscribe to my channel. I put out new videos every Tuesday. last but not least, if you have any comments, I would love to have a conversation with you. Let's do this journey together. Let's master the art of lifing and really do life on purpose.